Happy Mother's Day. I say that, and then we're going to do some things that are a little different today. Have any of you seen the book? It's an old children's book. And the title of it is, I Love You Forever, I Love You Always. It's about a mother and a little boy. When our youngest, William, the football player, was young, he was Mommy's sweet baby boy. He's our youngest. And we would read this book, and he would say, oh, Mommy, I will always be there for you. I will always be your sweet boy. But now he's 21, and he's headed off to play Division I football. Big excitement and big adventure for all of us. Now you all saw that I was in the Army, and when I was in the Army and they sent me to Korea, William had just turned 4. Every morning at 10 o'clock, everything in my office stopped, and I called William. It was his bedtime on this side of the world. And we would say goodnight, and Mommy would sing him to sleep. I got out of the Army when William was 7. Our older children had gone off to college. Daddy was still working for the military as a government contractor, so he was deployed and on the road all the time. Most of the time it was just Mommy and William. William and Mommy, the two of us. We had a wonderful time. When I started my doctoral program, he decided that he needed to homeschool. If Mommy was doing school at home, he needed to do school at home. His desk and computer were on one side of the fireplace in the living room, and mine were on the other side of the fireplace in the living room. I've had a wonderful time being the mother of 5 children, and I've had some amazing career opportunities and adventures. How many of you have seen the movie Hidden Figures? Hidden Figures. It's the movie about the women who worked for NASA. Y'all have seen it? Okay, the focus of this movie is women of color. At one point, the female engineer says she needs to be in the room when they're discussing the problems and trying to solve the latest issues. When she brings up this issue, she's told only men are allowed in the room. It doesn't make any difference what her job is. She isn't a man, so she's not welcome in this room where important decisions are being made. That was the 1960s, 50 plus years ago. We like to think that we've opened up the roles of women. But my question to you is, are we just pretending? When I graduated from college in 1980, we were told that women were paid 75 cents for every dollar a man was making at that period of time, and that we needed to be prepared for that. That was 20 years before the end of the 20th century. Now, eventually, Roger and I had children, 3 of them, or 5 of them, 3 boys and 2 girls. I spent my adult life bumping up against the challenges of women in the workplace and women in ministry. As I struggled, I believed that every step I could take forward would open doors for my daughters. But we're getting close to 20 years into the 21st century. This year, women are making 75 cents on the dollar to what a man makes. In the UCC, we work for economic equality. Our church janitors and our secretaries are all paid at least $50 an hour, and we do our best to provide them with benefits. But our female clergy are still being paid 75 cents to every dollar that our male counterparts are making. Would you be willing to give up 25% of your income just because you had brown eyes? Would you be willing to give up 20% of your income just because you were too tall? No, we wouldn't. And it's probably not something that we should be doing for women. Almost 40 years from the time I graduated from college. Our niece, Lori, who is one of our very dearest of our nieces and nephews, has a just adorable, precocious, cute as an absolute bug little boy. He's 2. Without knowing it, she has very different standards for her young son and her 12-year-old daughter. She loves to say, boys will be boys. And it's so cute now. Last week on Facebook, she posted all these pictures of him in the mud with his cars and trucks. It was so cute. How cute will it be when he's in a college fraternity? We teach young women in our society to dress conservatively, to always check the back seat when they get into their cars, when they go out at night, to go in groups. Why do we do this? We do it because every 9 seconds in the United States of America, a woman is abused by a man. Why are we not teaching our sons that to abuse a woman, to rape a woman, is wrong? Why are we teaching our daughters and not our sons? Now, as if that isn't bad enough, a woman every 9 seconds. Double that if the woman is trans. So trans women have a 50% higher rate of being abused and murdered in our country. How many female veterans do you know? You know me. How many of you are veterans? Any veterans in our group? Okay. Veterans. When women get out of the military, immediately they take a 25 to 30% cut in pay. Women in the military have a really high rate of divorce. Not that the military doesn't just across the board. And often they end up as single parents. Now, when I think about homeless veterans, I think about Vietnam vets. How about you? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Especially those who struggle with PTSD and have developed challenges with drugs and alcohol. And it's true. Those vets are on the street. We see them every day. But the group that is swelling the ranks of homeless vets is female veterans with children. We have a huge VA here. Just downtown Phoenix. It's easy to find. You can't miss it. It's gigantic. Do we have any responsibility to find justice for these women? Freedom of choice. I'm a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 5. So I'm pretty anti-abortion. My faith says life begins at conception. That's my faith. But, big but, capital letters, B-U-T, I am a firm supporter of a woman's right to choice, to their freedom of religious beliefs that are different than mine, even a freedom to have no God relationship. For me, That absolutely translates to freedom of choice. My faith says life begins at conception, but that doesn't have to be yours. And it's wrong for my faith to dictate your or any woman's morality. How do we protect a woman's right to choose? At the National United Church of Christ in Cleveland, you all know about Cleveland, yeah. They've put out a new plan. Have you all seen it? It's responsible care for the health of our earth. It centers around the statement, the earth is the Lord's. I was sitting over coffee a couple weeks ago with a clergy friend of mine, and he was expressing his frustration at all the violence here and around the world. He asked me a question, expecting an answer. Why is it in the 21st century we have not learned to love each other and celebrate our differences? Why do we continue to hate and kill? He was really talking globally, and I'm telling you, I threw my hands up, and I was like, oh my goodness, that is way too big of a question to answer. And as I'm holding my head and shaking back and forth, and I'm thinking, oh, I've got to make this smaller. I have to bring this down to a level I can touch. I need it to be personal. How do we stop violence and stop hate? Make it little. Make it where I live. For me, the answer came down to, what am I going to do about justice? Not on a world scale, not even thinking about justice in the whole US of A, or even the state of Arizona. But I had to look into my own heart. Do I, on a very personal level, want justice? What am I willing to do? Do I believe on this Mother's Day that justice is important? Is it important for our mothers, wives, daughters, granddaughters, aunts, nieces? If the answer is yes, then what are we willing to do about it? That's an uncomfortable question. When you look deep into your heart, the answer may be uncomfortable too. Did one of these issues of justice for women speak to your heart today? John 14 says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me." I told you, we have 4 older children and the baby who is now 21. He's a football player and has been since he was 8 years old. Out of high school, he had some college offers, but they were not big offers, not what he was expecting at all. He was frustrated and disappointed. So he decided to join the Army. It was a life he knows. It's comfortable. He has always been one to think it is his job to save the world. In preschool, he refused to potty train. He was 3, and they couldn't move him to the 3-year-old class because he just wouldn't go potty in the toilet. Well, one day, in his Save the World mode, he perceived that the teacher was being mean to one of the small little girls who was 2. And he took a running start, headbutted her right in the center, and knocked her to the ground. If the school administration had not believed in the goodness of his heart, they would have expelled him from kindergarten as a 3-year-old. Later that same year, we were at my commander's house. We were at the colonel's house, and it was just a gathering of the officers in our unit, and there was a swimming pool in the backyard. Isn't that nice? And you had to walk past this swimming pool with no fins to get to the swing set and the play area for the children. So William's walking along. Mind you, remember, he's 3. He's walking along with a group of children. And there's this little tiny little girl walking next to him. And he's terrified that she's going to fall into the pool, and maybe she doesn't know how to swim. So he keeps trying to edge her over away from the edge of the pool. When he steps off the edge, and in he goes. Okay, Mercy is still trying to save the world. Now, fortunately, we had a pool at home, and William knew how to swim. So in spite of the fact that he had on heavy overalls and a big heavy shirt and hiking boots, he managed to tread water till Roger got to him. But what a scary time. Now I tell you that, and I say, so he decides out of high school he's going to join the army. But remember, this is the little boy who needs to save the world. He thinks the army will pay for college, but that's not enough. He signs up to be an airborne ranger. I want to tell you, if John 14 says, "Let not your hearts be troubled," this mother's heart was troubled. It's one thing for mom to be in the army. It's another thing to send my son. The beginning of John 14 talks about, "Let not your heart be troubled," but it's the next 2 verses that scared me. "In my house are many mansions, and I've gone to prepare one for you." So I think my baby wants to be an airborne ranger, and one of those mansions, oh dear, something needs to change here. It was a very scary time for me. I didn't want him moving into that mansion anytime too soon. Now I share that with you, and as we move to our time of communion, we're going to shift things just a little. I want you to go with me on this and see how it changes your perceptions of communion. When we come to the table and the bread and the wine are available, I want to remind you now, so if you get lost in these thoughts, that everyone is welcome at the table this morning. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to take you down a path that may seem a bit odd, but I want you to bear with me. Today is about mothers, and even more, the women who impact our lives and the need for justice. I think the many loaves of bread on our altar are very exciting. Each of one of them came with a story of a woman whose strength of character impacted the life of another. That's a great blessing to each of us. Now come with me. I want to take you a step farther down that path. We know the communion story, but this morning I want you to ponder as you prepare your hearts. I'd like you to be challenged, and to replace the traditional images of communion and Father God with images of Mother God. One who has to answer her son when he cries to her from the Garden of Gethsemane in anguish, begging not to go to the cross. Can you feel the pain in her heart as she has to answer him? Can you feel the love and compassion in her answer? Adoring her son, but not lifting the burden from his shoulders. It is Mother God's Son, whose body is broken for you. It is the blood of Mother God's Son that brings us a new covenant of love.